Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Norwich City Council Licensing Subcommittee, Monday, 6th of December 2021. We've got one main item on our agenda today, and that is application for grant of a premises licence, Oliver's 1528 Untitled Road in Norwich. Okay, so we'll start with apologies, and there are none, and declarations of interest. I will just say that this is my ward, so I represent the ward that this application is in, but I don't know the applicant or the objector, and haven't spoken to any of the local residents about this particular meeting. Okay, so we'll move on to application of grant of a premises licence, Oliver's 1528 Unpaid Road. And Maxine, would you like to introduce the report, please?
I just need to confirm that the new licensing policy is in force and that this agenda of the report was published prior to the new licensing policy being granted. Members are asked in accordance with the delegation of licensing functions contained in the Norwich City Council Statement of Licensing Policy, Licensing Act 2003, to consider the application for the grant of a premises licence in respect of Oliver's 1528 Unfed Road, Norwich, NR2 2RS, following receipt of relevant representations. Recommended that members determine the application to grant the premises licence in accordance with the Licensing Act 2003, guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003, and Norwich City Council Statement of Licensing Policy. The applicant is White Orchard Limited and the proposed DPS is Nicholas Colesworth. The application seeks to allow the licensable activities, times and opening hours as set out in the application form, which is attached to Appendix A. This also includes the steps proposed to promote the licensing objectives and the operating schedule. Relevant representations from the responsible authorities was only received from the police, and the applicant has agreed to their conditions, and a copy of this is attached to Appendix B. We did receive representation objecting to the application, and that has been received from one local resident. A copy is attached to Appendix C. Attached to Appendix D is a location map. Attached to Appendix E is a response sent to the objector by the applicant for the objector still wished his objection to remain. Attached to Appendix F are the elements of the City Council's local licensing policy, which are considered to have a bearing upon the application. Attached to Appendix G are the elements of the national guidance issued by the Secretary of State that are considered to have a bearing upon the application. In determining the application with a view to promoting the licensing objectives, the subcommittee must give appropriate weight to the steps that are appropriate to promote the licensing objectives, that is to say, the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance and the protection of children from harm. The representations, including supporting information presented by all the parties, the guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003, National Guidance, and the Council's own Statement of Licensing Policy. The subcommittee must take such of the following steps as it considers appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives. Grant the application as asked, modify the conditions of the licence by altering or omitting or adding to them, reject the whole or part of the application, refuse to accept the proposed DPS. The subcommittee is asked to note that it may not modify the conditions or reject the whole or part of the application merely because it considers it desirable to do so. It must actually be appropriate in order to promote the licensing objectives. The representations received appear to relate to the issues that fall under the licensing objectives. The subcommittee is directed to paragraphs 20 and 24 of the local licensing policy at Appendix E, which contain examples of factors that impact on the licensing objectives that the applicant could consider when addressing these issues. These paragraphs also contain examples of control measures that may be taken into account in operating schedules, having regard to the type of premises and or the licensable activities. The subcommittee is also reminded of the contents of Appendices 2, 3, 4 and 5 of the local licensing policy, not reproduced in this report, which contains clause and model conditions relating to the 4 licensing objectives.
Thank you, Maxine. Okay, we'll just do some introductions. I'm your chair today. My name's Ian Stewley. We've got Councillor Mary Maxwell to my left, Councillor Ben Price to my right, Sarah Moss, who is our legal representative from MP Law, Maxine from the licensing team, and Liaison as well, who's helping with the tech. So if you'd like to introduce yourselves as well, and then we'll hear from you, and then we'll ask you some questions.
So my name's Oliver. I'm an employee of White Orchard Limited, and Oliver's the sole director of White Orchard Limited. We'll be trading as Oliver's. I'm in charge of marketing and various other things, day-to-day operations of the business. And I'm here as a representative for the business, just to speak on Oliver's behalf. Obviously, if you have any questions, directly to him as well.
Okay, thank you. So we'll just kick off with, if you'd like to introduce the business, what you propose for the business, with particular regard to the licensing objectives and the objector response as well. So we've had a representation. Unfortunately, the objector was unable to join us today. So if you'd like to just address those concerns in your address to us, please.
Yeah, so Oliver's is intended to be a very nice, casual neighbourhood bar. As you'll see from the hours we apply for, it's not late night, like silly hours of the night. It really is just about midnight, 1 a.m. And we'll be serving wine, beer, cocktails, and food will be served as well. So just like you can call it a nibbles menu. So no hot food or anything, but like bread, olive hummus and stuff. The bar is completely table service, so there will be no one wandering in, wandering out. Everyone will be sat, so we can manage guest experience from start to finish. That pertains to the objection that we have about nuisance, because we believe that our ability to understand and deal with issues of intoxication are greatly heightened by the table service management system, because if someone is at the door and they are visibly intoxicated, which can happen, we've got combined 14 years of hospitality experience, so we understand the signs very well, we've had plenty of training, we're very confident we'll be able to keep staff adequate full training on what constitutes, somebody that you shouldn't serve. And of course, if someone became intoxicated during the time that they were with us, they would be asked politely to leave, and hopefully that don't escalate past that. But again, we've had plenty of experience with that kind of thing in the past, so we know well how to deal with it. The second objection, I believe, from the objector was in regards to traffic and disruption around the area. We would note that we are in a kind of a built-up area with lots of other businesses on that road, on Untitled Road, and also around the Golden Triangle area, up on Lee Street. There's many pubs and restaurants and businesses around there that have people making deliveries and people visiting, and there's parking across the road for all those businesses. We would suggest it's wholly unlikely that the addition of our bar with its 30 covers and limited opening hours would contribute any great extra amount of traffic to the area. Deliveries for ourselves, we're not a full-on pub, so you're not talking massive trucks from Liaison or anything like that. It will just be light goods vehicles occasionally making deliveries. We're opposite East England Co-op, and they have HGVs coming in all hours of the day making big deliveries. We're in the bar at the moment doing refurb work all the time, and we've noted it basically all times of day, big trucks making deliveries to East England Co-op, and we've got nothing like that. And in terms of taxi pick-up and drop-off, there's lots of places around that area that the taxis could pick up and drop off from, and we don't think we would be adding any kind of great disruption to the street. The William and Florence, the Pear Tree Inn, and also Blue Joanna all have regular taxi pick-up and drop-offs. And I would note that I don't think there's any additional disruption caused on that road, as bad as that road could get, which it does sometimes, I'm sure you're aware. The final part of the objection, if you just give me 2 seconds just to go to, oh, I've got it in front of me. Yeah, so the objection says that it's a residential neighbourhood and late night music, alcohol consumption and noise both inside the venue and on the street will have a serious detrimental effect to the quality of residents' lives. To the point of late night music, we have a small speaker system. There will be no live music. It's all recorded music, which we can maintain and manage the volume of very adequately. And the music in our business is designed just to be conducive to conversation. It's not a party venue. It really is a sit down, have a chat, have a glass of wine type place. So we won't be playing loud music. We have been outside the premises, Oliver and I, with our speaker system at full volume, and we couldn't hear it when we were outside. We have also responded to requests for soundproofing, which is coming this week, so we'll install extra soundproofing measures just to make sure it really is the least amount of disruption possible. And in terms of late night music, again, it's not going to be past midnight that we will be playing any recorded music. In terms of detriment to the effective quality of residents' lives with alcohol consumption, we would note that there are lots of licensed premises in the area. There are many licensed premises in the vicinity of the residence of the objector, and I don't have access to the kind of crime statistics that I'm sure yourselves are, but I'm led to believe that the Unbank area and Golden Triangle is safe, and there's very rarely any issues around alcohol consumption, and nothing like what the objector is concerned about that you would expect from somewhere like a Prince of Wales type venue. It couldn't be further from that kind of venue. That about sums up our responses to the objections, and I hope I've adequately communicated to you what kind of business it's going to be. And if you have any questions for us, I'm happy to answer them. So that concludes my bit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll have some questions from members now. Would anyone like to start? Councillor Maxwell, please.
Thank you. I've probably been redundant here, but you've said that they've got to be seated. Do you have an agreement on how you seat them? Is there a waiting area outside?
So we have a small waiting area between the door and the, what do you call it? We have like a little bureau thing which says please wait here to be seated. And we've only got about 30 covers. So the time from which our front of house staff can greet new guests and seat them to the time that they would have to go back and greet the next people if there would ever be a queue is incredibly short. So the likelihood of anyone being built up back there is very low. We also do have a small bench area at the front, so I could sit people down if they were waiting for a table. But I would suggest that it's probably quite unlikely that we'd ever have great amounts of people waiting outside. None of our tables is bigger than 6, and we won't be taking bookings or accepting parties bigger than 6, simply because we don't have space for it. So there's no chance of, hen party of 15 turning up and then spilling out to the streets while we find seats.
Is there a limit on how long they stay?
No. So once we've seated a party, we'll attend to their table as and when they want more drinks, more food. But I would expect, and this is to be completely honest, just a guess, but I would expect it will be the same kind of dwell time as any other seated venue like this. Not as long as a restaurant. You're talking 60 minutes to maybe an hour and a half, and in that time, that's probably about an hour and a half about the maximum time that will be sat there.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Price.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sure that the Chair will have questions for you regarding the use of the outside space and some of the timings that are stipulated in the application. I just want to, at this point, refer to the sound of the amplified music. So questions would be confirmation that there are no outdoor speakers, understanding how the doors work, whether or not there's been a noise impact assessment done in any way, and whether or not the applicant is happy to agree in the licence to a definite confirmation of music stopping at midnight and potential use of sound limiters. So it's on speaking outside, how does the door operate, sound limiters and stopping of music.
So to the first point, speakers outside, there aren't any. We have no speakers outside and we have no plans for them. We don't have the space, we don't have the intention to, it just wouldn't be conducive. It wouldn't be nice for the area, it wouldn't be nice for us. We don't think there's any need for them outside, so there are no plans ever to have any speaker systems outside. Our front door will be closed all of the time because as part of our, I haven't actually talked about this yet, but as part of our business objectives, we are very much all about sustainability. So incidentally, that means we would never just be having the door open and having the heat going all the time, because it's just not a good thing to do for energy usage. But that hopefully will assuage any concerns you've got about the door being open and the music being on and that spilling out to the street. Soundproof assessment we haven't done, just us in our own amateurish way standing outside and saying, well, that's nice, you can't hear it. But we would be open to doing that. If there were serious concerns about sound spilling out to the street, we'd be happy to have someone come along with a decibel meter to make sure it doesn't constitute a statutory nuisance to any residents around there or nearby. You'll have to remind me of your 4 point, sorry, it was...
Well, it was just effectively, would you consider a sound limiter? And you mentioned about the time when the music might stop. So I think there are elements of talking about the trading hours that we're looking to operate, but would I be right in assuming that at the same time as stopping trading, I think, which would be midnight time, but that would also be the time that the music would be positively agreeing that that's when the music would stop?
Yes, so at the time of last orders, at the time at which we will cease to sell of alcohol, that is also the time that we would turn the music off and turn the lighting conditions up in the bar. In our experience of many pubs and bars that we've worked in, that's the thing that works best. And yeah, so hopefully that's agreeable to yourselves that we would be stopping music at that time. So after last orders and during drinking up time, there would be no music because it just gently reminds people that it's time to go.
Okay, thank you. In your letter, on page 33 of the pack, you've written to the objector outlining how you intend to manage the bar, and in this case you've said that in practice you would only open till 1 o'clock on Friday and Saturday, midnight on all other days except Sunday, which would be earlier at 11. Do you plan to stick to those times? And if so, what would be the circumstances where you would open later?
So yeah, in our application you'll note that we've got the sale of late night refreshment until 1 AM, but the sale of alcohol ceases at midnight on each day. We don't think it would be conducive or even profitable for us to be open past midnight during the week. So that's Monday to Thursday. One, just because of people's drinking habits and how they drink, and especially how they will drink in a venue like ours. Yeah, sales past midnight just are very unlikely to be profitable or sustainable for us from Monday to Thursday. And the same is true of Sunday. We'll know how quiet it gets around that area, kind of late on Sunday. A drop off from about 9 o'clock as everyone kind of makes their way home, and there's no late night drinking going on Sunday. So yeah, I hope that addresses that question.
Okay, thank you. So should there be a situation where you find your bar is very popular and busy, you would plan to open later if it was profitable?
I would suggest still probably not. One thing that we are very conscious of is in terms of our staffing, none of our staff works a shift pattern in a week longer than 4 days. One of our objectives, aims for this business is really to demonstrate how we can have a nice, sustainable way of working for our staff. And I don't believe it's right to make hospitality staff work late nights regularly. And we ourselves are going to be in the business all the time. And I don't want to be there past midnight on a Thursday, and I don't think Oliver wants to be there past midnight on a Thursday. We understand Friday and Saturday is where the money is to be made. But yes, I'm aware that you're just taking this at face value, that we're saying that that's what we'll do, even though we have the licence. But we have discussed this, and if yourselves were to suggest amendments to keep us to those times, we'd be more than happy to do that.
Okay, thank you. The committee is able to impose conditions, or you're able to offer conditions or a change in the hours. But just on that, I note that your application for late night refreshment and alcohol sales match timings at 1 o'clock. So on page late night refreshment, page 12, we've got 1 o'clock Monday to Saturday and midnight on Sunday, and then sale of alcohol on page 14. Again, we've got the same hours. Do you wish to amend those hours?
Yes, I think that might be a case of cost-wise. Amending those hours would be completely agreeable. And instead of 1 AM Monday through Thursday, that could be midnight. And then the only times where we would request, if possible, opening until 1 AM would be the Friday and Saturday. And the Sunday again, an earlier closing time, if that's agreeable.
Okay, so at the moment we've got 1 o'clock on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday. You wish to amend that to 12 o'clock?
Yeah.
Okay, and Sunday we have 12 o'clock?
12 o'clock would make it easier for us, just because we could go until about 11:30 if it was busy, but that's extremely unlikely. So again, we're willing to take your advice on that matter, if you think it would be better for us to be closed early.
Okay, Friday and Saturday you wish for that to be unchanged. At the moment your hours for alcohol, as requested, match the closing times for Friday, Saturday and Sunday. The police representation requested a drinking up time, so therefore at the moment they don't allow for drinking up time. So do you wish to amend your hours in order to insert a drinking up time?
No, so what we'll do is we'll take whatever where the hours cease for the sale of alcohol, 30 minutes to 45 minutes before that time is when the drinking up time will start. So we would ask for last orders, for instance, if it was a midnight closure at 11:15, so that we wouldn't be taking any more orders until 11:30, and then there would be no more orders taken and no more sale of alcohol after 11:30. So we would build drinking up hours into that.
Okay. Yes, Sarah, please.
Thank you. Because that's one of the conditions, perhaps we could agree on the wording, just be absolutely clear on what you're agreeing to. So, for instance, the police condition so currently says management will allow for a drinking up period for alcohol before the premises closes. So, if we were to insert the management will allow for a drinking up period for alcohol 30 minutes before the premises closes, would that be acceptable?
Yeah, 30 minutes would be acceptable, yes.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any other members? Councillor Price.
Chair, I was a little confused by that, and I can see the positivity of working to an agreement here. So, just if I could just understand what the hours, just confirm to me again, Chair, the stopping of drinking, the drinking up time and the closure times that we're agreeing in 7 days.
Thank you. I'll turn to Sarah actually, and can you explain, as you understand it, how the hours will work currently?
So, thank you. I was actually wanting to clarify that myself. So, you've just gone through with the chair the hours that the premises are open to the public. So, I've got Monday, the end time would be midnight. Is that right? Tuesday is also midnight. Wednesday, midnight. Yes. Thursday, midnight. Friday, currently 1 o'clock. Saturday, 1 o'clock. Yeah. And Sunday would be 11:30. Okay. So consequently, you'll be looking to reduce your hours for the supply of alcohol. So you'll be, I'm trying to think this through.
With the introduction of a 30-minute drinking up time, would those hours logically be 30 minutes prior to the close of business?
So that's how I understand it.
Yes.
The cessation of sale of alcohol will be 30 minutes before when the opening to the public times stop. Yeah.
So actually then we're looking at reducing the supply of alcohol hours to fit in with those. So that's like half an hour before, isn't it? So if we've got a drinking up time 30 minutes, so you would sell alcohol until 11:30 with a drinking up period of 30 minutes. So basically all those hours have just been, so for the sale of supply of alcohol, you would just knock off 30 minutes for each day, as I just said, for the opening hours, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
I think we've got it now.
Yeah.
So we've got Monday to Thursday, 11:30, and then Friday and Saturday, 12:30,
That's right.
and Sunday.
Our apologies, I think we got crosswise about cessation of alcohol
Yeah.
sales and closure to the public, but that's what we just discussed is absolutely what we like. Yeah.
And Sunday, 11 in that case. Okay, thank you. That's well.
Thank you.
Noted by the committee.
Yeah.
Does that answer the question? Yeah. Councillor Maxwell, please.
Yeah, give me, I meant to ask you this before. Is there any drinking outside?
So we don't have a licence for the outside area.
So is there any seating outside?
We will have 2 small outdoor tables and 4 seats, and that's purely for the provision of somewhere for people to sit if they're outside smoking. There will be no drinks outside, no glassware outside, no service outside, no food outside. So purely we'll have a little outside garden area where patrons must be seated if they're smoking in that area, and that's it. There will be no sale of any food or drink in that area at all.
And will you be able to control the noise if we get a bit noisy outside?
So if we've got space for up to 4 guests out front there, and only if they're outside just having a cigarette or using an e-cigarette or similar, we would respectfully request from them, as far as we can, that they keep the noise to an absolute minimum. Again, expecting no more than 4 people outside, and we will say to them as they leave, please can you just use the seating outside, and or whoever is the shift leader at that time would go out and remind people, could you please sit down.
Are you allowing them to take drinks outside? No.
There will be no drinks outside.
So somebody will be policing it?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, the outside area and the 4 outside seats that we're planning are right in front of the big window at the front of the premises. So from wherever you are in the bar, if you're working on the floor, or even if you're working on the service bar, you can see out there. So it's really easy for us to make sure that someone can just dart outside and be like, sorry, could you please be sat down? And no glassware of any kind is allowed out there, no drinks, no food, nothing.
And do the windows open?
No, they don't. So the ventilation we have kind of jammed shut because it's only single glazing, and we're losing so much heat through it that we just wanted to make sure that there's no gaps there. So the front door is the only thing that would ever be open if someone's coming in or leaving, but that would be closed most of the time as well. So it's, also so there's no nuisance from smoke for patrons who are sat near the windows.
And if they're queuing up to get in, even just to actually offer a table, how do you control the queue?
I wouldn't anticipate we would ever have a long queue.
I'm being optimistic for you.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it would be a lovely problem to have people queuing all the way down the back road, but it's extremely unlikely that we'd have a big queue. Worst case scenario, I'm seating a table of 4 and another table of 4 turns up, and I've got space for all 4 of that second party to be stood in the doorway whilst I'm seating the first 4 that came in. So it will be 30 seconds to a minute, maybe 2 minutes that other people will be stood outside, but I think that's extremely unlikely.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Referring to the plan that we've got, and have you got a large version of that?
Which page is that, sorry?
The plan that we have, I'll just show that to you there. Jeremy will bring you a copy of that. On that, the licensable area, I assume, is marked with the red. Can you confirm that, please?
So we've been informed specifically by yourselves, and we can't recall the name of the person who informed us that outside area is not licensable and is not licensed. So this may have been what we applied for, but we have agreed, and I don't know if you have a record of this communication, but we have agreed to a condition that outside area is not licensed. So that front wall that is the window between the inside area and the courtyard is where the licensable activity stops, and that outside area, we were under the impression that we didn't have a license for it.
Okay, well, you're entitled to make an application for that space, but you just indicated that you had no intention of using it as a license.
We have no intention of using it for a license, for any licensable activities. If we were going to, we would put in a new application probably closer to the summertime, and just treat it as a completely separate matter. But what we're discussing today, for license to go into today, there will be absolutely no licensable activities going on out the front there at all.
Okay, thank you. Sarah, will we need to redraw this map, or are you happy that we understand the situation?
I don't think we'll need to redraw the map. I mean, it's been advertised as such, you're actually reducing the amount that you originally applied for, so I don't think that should cause any issues, providing you are clear that obviously, because you're applying for on sales only, you wouldn't be able to have any off sales, so you wouldn't be able to have anybody drinking outside in that area. So just really make clear. Yeah,
that's completely fine. And I have no intention of serving people out there in January. I don't want to do that, so that's completely agreeable.
Okay, thank you. That's noted by the committee. Are we okay? Plan. Thank you.
Yeah, it might just be an idea, if you wouldn't mind, perhaps just indicating on the plan exactly where you want that licensable area to stop, just so that we are actually really clear.
How do you propose
I mean, if you're happy, I can just kind of draw a line on here and just...
Yeah,
say,
sure. Would you, if I just got my mask on and come over and just show you, yeah?
Yeah. Chair, if you wouldn't mind, just to be...
Yes.
Just to clarify.
Yeah, please do. Thank you.
So, yeah, sure. This is set up earlier. And I read on which we're going down there. This is the courtyard.
Thank you. Yeah, that's clear.
Could you share that with the committee, please? Just for clarity.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's noted by the committee and fully clear. Okay, we'll return now to your schedule, management schedule, and that's on page 17. And again, I think we'll just ask you for some clarity on this. The CCTV has been addressed by the police, and you've agreed to that as suggested by the licensing officer and the Norfolk Police. There were other conditions under 18s to be off the premises by 10 p.m. The drinking up period we've covered, and the open vessels alcohol off the premises we've also covered by the outside space not being licensed.
Sorry for interrupting. Perhaps just for clarity there, if we were to remove with exceptions of the outside area, because obviously that's not relevant, it might just confuse the issue if that remains in.
Yes,
would you be agreeable to that?
Yeah, absolutely, that's right.
Thank you, Sarah. The licensing objectives addressed from page 17. We have the reference here to training of staff. How do you propose to carry out training of staff? When, how often, and how will that be recorded, please?
So our members of staff, before the time that we start opening and trade to the public, we have a training day set aside in which we will take them through the licence objectives one by one, and actually show them this verbatim, what we've agreed to and how we intend to address the licence objectives. Our staff will be instructed to challenge 25, so anyone that appears under the age of 25 will need to present photo ID, and that's useful because we are table service. We can do that at the door, so we can actually do that before we even sat guests if we think they do look under 25. And all staff, after receiving the training, will be given something to read that details that again, and they will all sign off that they have read and understood those licence objectives, and how we approach things. There's a few extra things to that. Basically, I will take them through what intoxication looks like, what they should be looking for, what to do when somebody becomes intoxicated in the course of their time with us, if they become intoxicated. And again, they'll sign that they've read and understood those things. And I will be repeating that training every quarter or so, and each new member of staff will go through that exact same training procedure. I don't know to show you, but basically the contracts that staff sign as part of our agreements procedure, we have made it very clear that it is an offence that I would consider immediate dismissal grounds if they fail to challenge 25, or if they were to serve anyone that we deemed unservable. So that would be grounds for immediate dismissal.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, Chair. Sorry, could I just chip in there on the
Please do.
training? It would be usual to have your records inspected by an officer of the relevant authority. Is that something that you'd be willing to add on there?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could I
Any frequency of inspection, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Could I agree the wording with you, just so that we're clear? So currently you've got records will be kept of training and refresher training. So something on the lines of records will be kept of all training and refresher training given to staff, such records to be made available to an officer of a responsible authority on request. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Further on, under public safety, premises occupier capacity, you've indicated elsewhere that the capacity is 30 patrons. Are you offering to put that into your conditions here?
Yes, so we have recently had health and safety inspection that suggested that our maximum occupancy of any kind would be 60, but that's if we were doing people standing, which we're not. And we quite literally only have room for 30 covers. So if that was a stipulation, we would be happy with that, yeah.
Okay, are you offering that as a condition now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So, and are you also offering no standing drinking?
Yeah, we have neither the room nor the inclination to let anybody to be standing up and drinking. Yeah, if we're out of covers, we're out of covers. There's no exceptions.
Okay.
Excuse me, is that actually a condition that you're offering, that it won't be vertical drinking?
Yeah, we don't, just to explain how our service style works, there's no actual bar that you would be able to stand at, and there's no gathering spaces anywhere, and no standing bars. It's just a service bar, which you can't even get to, really. So any guests will be sat down.
Okay, would you like to offer some wording on that condition, since it will form part of your operating schedule?
I would be happy to take your suggestion on that, other than because I won't be able to have the legalese to say please don't stand up.
No, that's fair enough. That's fine. You previously said that all customers will be seated while consuming alcohol and food. Would that be something that you would be looking to offer as a condition?
Yeah, that would be appropriate.
Right. Okay. In that case, what I'd suggest is perhaps combining the two. Something on the lines of the licensee will ensure that all customers are seated while consuming alcohol and food, and no customer will be permitted to drink alcohol while standing.
Yeah, that's perfect.
That's perfect. Thank you. Chair.
Okay, I've got a question from Councillor Price. Is it relating to the operating
No,
schedule? Should we just go through that and come to it? Sorry. Okay, thank you. So the next on the list, I've got employ suitable and appropriate risk assessments. So have you carried out those risk assessments, and have you come to the conclusion that there'll be a requirement for SIA trained staff?
We've had a health and safety inspection recently, which, as I just mentioned, was to give us advice on the capacity. To just clarify the SIA training for me?
Security Industry Authorised Licence. Further up, under the Prevention of Crime and Disorder, you've got number 4, employment of Security Industry Authority Licensed door staff to ensure safety of patrons, etc. You put that in as a condition, and I just wondered if, because there are other premises in the area don't have these staff, I just wondered if you'd had a risk assessment and decided that it was necessary.
We would conclude at this point that it's not necessary, just with the amount of patrons we have and our service style. And as you say, in line with other businesses in the area, I don't think we would need door staff. There's no point at which we'd ever be busy enough or pose any kind of risk that would warrant a licensed door staff.
Okay, in that case, do you wish to remove that condition?
Yes, please.
That's item 4B or B4. Okay, thank you. We've covered the training and CCTV. A question from Councillor Price, please.
No, thank you, Chair. Just picking up on this section, I do have another question at some point, but noting on D5, in the Prevention of Public Nuisance, we've got a collection and disposal of litter. My questions are to understand what company you'll be using, not the company specifically, but how you're going to have your waste taken. Are you prepared to have conditions where there won't be any bottles being put in bottle banks after midnight, etc., and that collections are in at reasonable times? There might be better wording around that.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Price. The times at which collections take place, or when you're emptying glass containers, for example, into bins, it's not covered in this schedule. So would you like to address that now, please?
So because of the size of the venue, the company that is doing waste collection for us have provided us with domestic sized glass bin and recycling bin. So we don't have masses and masses of bottles being collected at any one time. Their collection schedule, I believe, is every Friday 10 o'clock? It's 10 a.m. or before. It's not an early morning collection, and that's each Friday. But to your point about taking bottles out, because that can be very loud, we have an indoor glass bin, and the time at which I would be taking, or anyone would be taking the glass out into that bottle bin would be afternoon before start of service. So if I have, let's say, wine bottles from the night before, wouldn't be taking them out that night because they're going to clatter around at midnight, which would be disruptive. So we will be doing that the next day before opening, which would be either 4 p.m. or midday.
Okay, so in terms of wording for that, Sarah might have a standard wording available. Well, yes, I think something along the lines of no glass to be emptied outside between certain hours. So, would you like to offer those hours?
Between 9 and 9. So after 9 a.m. before 9 p.m. I think that would be right and reasonable for residents, and just a little bit of flexibility for us if someone forgets and only to do it later.
Okay, thank you. That's noted.
Could I just clarify that? So it's between the hours of 9 a.m.
9 a.m. and 9 p.m.
And 9 p.m. In that case, if I could just agree the wording with you so that you're absolutely clear what you're agreeing to. So no glass to be emptied into outside bins between the hours of 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. every day.
That's perfect.
While we're talking about litter, just to follow on from the chair's point, maybe collection and disposal of litter, was there anything else that you were meaning by that?
I don't think so. I think litter could be taken as waste and waste disposal. We understand our responsibility as a business operator in that area, that the area in front of our business is clean and tidy at all times. So if there is litter, dust, refuse out there, even if it's unrelated to our operation, would always be collected and brought inside to be disposed of. There is a bus stop right outside our premises. Sometimes cans of drink get left on the wall, packet crisp gets left on the wall. That's something that we're very conscious of keeping tidy all the time. And that does come under prevention of public nuisance, I think, just keeping that area free from litter. But that specific, what we're just talking about, collection and disposal of litter, as it pertains to that licence objective, I think that really does just mean refuse and waste collection.
Right. It's just the issue that we have is that collection and disposal of litter on its own isn't enforceable really. It needs to be a little bit more clear cut than that. So I was wondering what you were offering in terms of meeting that particular objective.
Do you have in mind a time at which you will inspect your outside area and clear that litter?
So
time or times? That
outside area would be inspected as soon as somebody is in early afternoon to start opening up the business. So during weekdays, that would be happening anywhere from midday to about 3 p.m. each day, and then on Saturday, Sunday, that will be happening anywhere from about 10 a.m. But if there is a specific wording for that, what time will be agreeable? Sorry to keep making you come up with new wording.
Here's something I prepared earlier. There is standard wording that I could suggest to you, and you're obviously free to make any amendments if you want to. So based on what you're saying, I'm thinking it's to do with at the beginning of each shift. Is that right? At the beginning of each business shift?
Yeah.
Okay, so at the beginning of each business shift, on a daily basis, the premises staff will collect any litter in the vicinity of the premises. Is that fair to say? Or
yes, it would be, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And dispose of this appropriately in the premises waste receptacles.
Yes, that's okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Unless it's noisy and it's after 9 p.m.
Yeah, the other condition still stands. It will be added in addition.
Okay, thank you. So do you intend to do this just at the beginning of service or at any other time as well?
At the beginning of service, but as I said, because we can see from our left-hand window and out the front as well, we can see throughout the evening, throughout the shift, if any waste has been created out the front. Because we don't have any licensed activity going on in our courtyard, it's hugely unlikely that will be related to our patrons, apart from, say, cigarette butts. But we will be regularly sweeping and sweeping those things away and disposing of them as pertains to the wording we've just come up with. So that will be happening throughout our hours of operation.
Okay, is that sufficient as an enforceable condition?
I believe so. I mean, we can add at the beginning of each business shift and throughout the shift.
Yeah, that's agreeable. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, finally, the section on protection of children from harm. We have a condition offered already, where children will be requested to leave by 10 p.m. each day. So that will be included in this schedule. And you've covered the training for proof of age. In there also, we've got the sufficient number of staff. Have you determined a sufficient number of staff? And what does that mean, that particular condition, please?
So there will never be less than 3 people working any shift at any part of the opening times. Yeah, so I'm not fully clear on the relevance of sufficient number of staff to protecting children from harm, but if it was in terms of making sure we have enough people to be aware of when there are children in the premises at, say, 9:30 and someone needs to do something about telling the parents that it's time for them to leave, there would never be any less than 3 people working a shift in the bar.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to put that into a condition and either offer a new condition? It's up to you. This is your application, and so either offer a new condition and remove number 1, or amend number 1.
We can amend number 1 to suggest that there would never be any less than 3 staff members working. That would be the most appropriate thing to do, I think.
Okay, thank you. Also in this section, number 3 and number 4, just to be sure, there's duplicated listings there. Is that just an oversight, or has something been missed off that list?
Those 2 points could be condensed into 1. So point 3, E3 and E4 are the same, and I don't know any other reason why they were duplicated.
Okay, so nothing's been omitted. Okay, thank you. Right, okay, and Councillor Price has pointed out that further up that page, you've got D1, CCTV registered door supervisors. Do you wish to amend that, given that you don't have or you haven't identified the requirement for registered door supervisors?
That could be amended to just provision of CCTV.
Yeah, so that's the provision of CCTV as indicated or as requested by the police. Okay, thank you. Councillor Price has a further question, please.
Thank you, Chair. It would be good if I could just seek clarity as to what the CCTV stipulations were by the police, if someone can remind me of that in a second. However, my question is around the use of the outside space. So we've stipulated that there will be no sale of alcohol, no consumption of alcohol, there will be no live or amplified music outside. Did we state that would be used by a maximum of 4 people? Was that stated at any point? I think so. So my question kind of relates to the point that Councillor Maxwell made, and it's about noise control. Now, obviously, people, it won't be conducive for people staying out if their drinks are inside, etc. I would be minded that the use of the outside space would coincide with very much the consumption of alcohol, and I think that the ambiguity about the space still being used right up to the end of trading, causes concern for me, where effectively people could be outside up until 1 a.m. say on a Friday or Saturday. So I was wondering if there was any conditions around what time you would actually close the outside to any patron use. And then you might have a follow-up question about exactly locations of CCTV.
So I would agree with you that it could become a nuisance if somebody was out there till about 1 a.m. We'd be happy to propose a condition that outside space wasn't being used past, say, 10 p.m. We have residences immediately to the right of us and on from there. And I think they would be happiest, and I'd be happiest knowing that there wasn't anybody using that space past 10 p.m. So if anyone was going out for a cigarette past that time, they'd be instructed to basically go across the road or elsewhere or somewhere else where it wasn't a nuisance. So yeah, that would be the condition I would propose specifically, is no usage of that outside space past 10 p.m.
Excuse me, sorry.
Yes, Sarah first, please.
So, just to agree the wording on that again, so that it can be clear what goes actually in the operating schedule. Did you have any wording you wish to offer?
Usage of the, can I just say outside space? Do we need a reasonable definition of what that constitutes? It's just that little courtyard area.
Can we say front?
Front to the front, yeah. At the front outdoor space past 10 p.m. and that would go for all days of the week, Monday through Sunday.
Okay.
So if we were to say then the front outside space would be closed to customers at 10 p.m. Monday to Sunday? Or?
Yes, so there is a small, there's that small walkway that you can see on the diagram, just the way you get to the front door, so we wouldn't include that enclosure because that would prevent people from actually, I know that seems pedantic, but it would prevent people from getting in. If there was some way of defining that other area that we're talking about as a courtyard area, front courtyard area, that isn't that little walkway between the two walls, but other than that, yes, it would be closed for public use past 10 p.m. each time.
Okay. How do you propose to close that?
We have got 2 small tables and 4 chairs, so 2 for each of the tables, which can be folded up. So we would quite literally be able to bring those in and put them back of house at say 10 to 5 to 10. And at that point, if anyone was going outside for a cigarette, we would say to them, you can't use this area anymore. If you need to go out for a cigarette, you're going to have to kind of walk down the street or go across the road. Or, that would be the way.
Okay. It is likely that people who wish to smoke will go around the side of your premises to smoke there. Do you consider that a better place for them to smoke than in the front garden?
Yes, that area, which you can see on the diagrams, is on that starts to go down Onley Street. Covers the entire side of our premises, so it's quite long, and it's opposite the East of England Co-op and their loading area. So it's both off the main road and also away from any residential areas as well, so it's not to cause a noise nuisance if anybody was stood out there having a cigarette. So that would be the most appropriate place for them to stand, yes.
Okay, thank you. Sarah, did you want to clarify anything?
Yes, thank you. So, except that the wording I'm currently looking at is except for access to and from the premises, the front outside space will be closed to customers at 10 p.m. Monday to Sunday.
That's perfect, yeah, that's exactly it, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Price wanted to come back with another question, I think, please.
It was just my other point, Chair, around what the confirmation of the exact CCTV provision that is set out. Yes.
Okay, I've got here from the Police Licensing Department, CCTV to be in operation and cover the main public areas of the premises and immediate outside. CCTV to record for a minimum of 28 days and be available to the police or licensing authority request, and the applicant has agreed to that condition. Okay, so that therefore, I think that hopefully that answers your question. So there'll be CCTV in the main areas facing where the public will that CCTV cover all seated areas?
Yeah, so there's a camera to the interior which covers the entirety of the floor. It's a wide-angle camera that covers the entirety of the floor space, so you'll be able to see every cover. And as stipulated by the police, a exterior camera, again wide-angle, covers that whole courtyard area, and you'll be able to note and see who comes in, who goes out, and the immediate street around that position. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councillor Maxwell, please.
On page 73, you talk about we will be serving a small selection of food alongside our beverage. What exactly does that mean? Is that crisps or?
Yes, we have a very small menu of basically snacks, crisps. There's no provision of hot food or cooked food at all. Nuts, crisps, bread and olive oil, homemade hummus, that kind of thing.
Nothing that's made in the kitchen.
We have a kitchen. We have a back of house space that is set up as a commercial kitchen space.
So everything that you serve as food comes wrapped.
Not wrapped, no. So if we were serving nuts or crisps, for instance, they will be presented in bowls, so they will come out that way. Yeah.
So there is people handling food there.
Yes, there are. Yes.
And you've got conditions for that.
Not as I believe as pertains to the alcohol licence that we're discussing here, but we have both of us have food safety hygiene qualifications, and the kitchen has been set up within the letter of the law for how that has to be set up. In terms of recording allergens, etc., we're very experienced between us with running this kind of thing.
I was just working out the number of staff that you have available against what you could possibly be getting in with these numbers. That's some wonderful numbers here. I'm slightly concerned about the handling of food. But who?
Councillor Maxwell, the food is a separate issue from the licensing and the licensing objectives, so we'll leave that to the relevant department.
I'm more concerned with the numbers of staff you've got. The small numbers of staff.
I'm happy to address this, the staffing numbers, and as those staff numbers will pertain to any alcohol licensing issues. On quieter evenings, so Monday through Thursday, let's say, we would have 3 people. That's 1 in front of house, 1 on the bar, also floating to support the front of house, and the third person is likely to be either Oliver or myself. And the ticket times, let's say, for all our food provision are very short, so it really is a matter of going back, get some hummus out of the fridge and then come in front of house again. So we have plenty of staffing to make sure that the licence objectives are well looked after.
That was a bit unsweet, you know, if the food, it wasn't the food you were selling, it was who was going to do it and make sure it was done properly.
We'll have someone nominated back of house to do the food, and the time it takes from receiving the order to preparing any of our food items is really short. So
I think there was a mention of 3 people at a time. So would that be enough?
That would be a minimum, and that would be a minimum for say Monday through Thursday.
Yeah.
Hopefully we get busier, that we could staff up and we would actually have more than 3, so Wednesday, Thursday time. Friday and Saturday, it's more realistic. There are 4 or 5 members of staff, but there will always be plenty of members of staff to be able to make sure that all of the stipulations and all of the licence objectives.
It wasn't the preparation or anything about the food, it was the numbers of staff to be able to do it.
Absolutely sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think we're close to wrapping up now, we have the letter of objection on page 29 from a resident close by. and they have made some suggestions that your premises will lead to some pretty unpleasant behaviour, such as violence and aggression due to alcohol consumption, and also customers urinating, vomiting in the streets and alleyways. Could you just address that directly, please, just for the benefit of this particular objector?
Yes, so we fully understand that the consumption of alcohol by any person on any occasion presents a real and present risk of the type of behaviour that the objector talks about. We would suggest that that is a present risk with any licensable activity of any kind for any premises of any volume, and we are doing absolutely everything, as we have all discussed here today, that we can to limit to the absolute minimum the possibility of anything like that happening. It would be unthinkable and just like a real shame if any of our patrons ever engaged in that kind of behaviour in the course of their evening out. But we are absolutely confident that we will have done everything we possibly can to make sure that we have not contributed to that kind of behaviour. Noting specifically our commitment to never ever admit anyone to the premises that is intoxicated or appears intoxicated, and to never ever serve anyone who became intoxicated during the course of their time with us. All staff will be trained to the letter of the law on that basis. And it goes with things like the Challenge 25 to prevent prevent harm to children and all the life objectives. I hope that's enough on that point. It's a present risk with any licensable activity, but I would be shocked and appalled if we would ever contribute to any of that kind of behaviour. Noting also that there are lots of licensed premises around that area, and that, to my knowledge, isn't much of an issue in the Golden Triangle. So.
Okay, thank you. So what do you have in place that will remind customers that are in a residential area as they leave? What do you have plans for signage or any verbal reminders to customers as they leave?
In terms of verbal reminders, absolutely. If there were people leaving towards the end of our licensable activities, we can, for want of a better phrase, catch people out. So they pay their bill and they're ready to go. They'll stand up, and the way they leave would be very controlled. It's not a case of flicking the lights on and all 30 people spill out onto the streets. So one table by table we'd say thank you very much for coming, and if it seemed like there was any risk of that, we would include in staff training. This is the point at which you would say, could you please leave quietly, because this is a residential area. If there were any other concerns about that, we'd be happy to propose a further stipulation that we would put up some signage, as you see in lots of premises, that say, please leave quietly. We have neighbours. We'd be happy to include that and happy to add signage to the interior, so as people leave, they get a further reminder of the fact that they need to keep the noise down.
Okay, thank you. Are you offering that as a condition? And can you say what kind of signage and where you will place it, please?
So above the main entrance door, as people exit the premises, we have space there that we can have a note or a sign painted in clear lettering. You are in a residential area, please keep the noise down. Or similar wording, where the effect was to remind patrons that they are in a residential area.
Okay, thank you. Would that be inside and outside?
It could be both. It would be inside, as I said, above the door. Outside, the most likely place for that would be on one of the two pillars to the exterior. You can see that flank the window there, so that if there were people out there smoking, they will be able to see a sign saying they're in a residential neighbourhood. I mean, I'm hoping our guests would have the wherewithal to see that they can literally see houses from where they're sat, but people do need reminding. So yeah, we'd be happy to stipulate that we would do that as well.
Okay, Sarah, I think we'll ask for some clarification.
Okay, are you happy for me to suggest some wording?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, there is quite standard wording that tends to be used. Clear and legible notices will be displayed inside the premises, above the main entrance door, and externally on both pillars outside.
It would probably only need to be just the one.
And on an external pillar outside, requesting customers to respect the needs of local residents and leave the area quietly. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. I think, unless there are any further questions from members, Sarah has further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I've just got a few more things really to run through in the operating schedule, if you're agreeable. Actually, I think I'll just start because you've obviously amended, you've reduced your opening hours to the public, and we've obviously reduced the supply of alcohol hours, but obviously we've got late refreshment as well and the recorded music. So I guess, would you be looking to reduce those in accordance with your opening hours as well?
So the late night refreshment and recorded music, the most appropriate times for those to end are at the same times each day as sale of alcohol ends, because we don't want to be playing recorded music during drinking up time. As we discussed earlier, we've stopped playing music, and there's no reason for us to be serving food after the sale of alcohol has stopped, because that's just going to encourage people to dwell, and that kind of defeats the point of drinking up time. So if we wanted to be, to go with specific timings, like night refreshment and playing of recorded music would match the sale of alcohol times.
Lovely, thank you. Okay, right, just going to the operating schedule. Just looking at the public safety, so number 2 there, you've got the layout of the premises will be as open as possible to prevent congestion and thus injury. Well, could you explain a bit further as to what you mean by that?
So we don't have a huge amount of space, which is why we have a limited amount of covers, but the main floor area, there's no additional furniture apart from, well, there's one bit of furniture right as you come in, which is just as a stopping point to greet guests as they come in, just like a little bureau thing. Other than that, it's all tables and chairs. So there is a clear channel from wherever you are in the bar to the toilet areas at the back, and likewise a clear path for the servers and anyone in the back of house staff to move freely around the bar. It was really just a point to make sure that everyone was aware that, along with it being table service only, you're never going to have a situation where people would be 3-4 deep at the bar. There's no risk of congestion, and because we have one entrance and exit point, we have been advised by the person who did our fire and health and safety risk assessment that as part of that, because you've only got one entry-exit point, you need to make sure that that's clearly visible to everyone. So there's no point in the entire bar you'd be sat where you'd be obstructed from the view of the entrance and exit.
Right, okay, so your main aim is then unobstructed exits and entrances and access to toilets.
Actually, yes.
Right, okay, because in this current form, it wouldn't be totally enforceable, what you've got in there. It's just too kind of vague. Would you have any objection to me suggesting any more wording?
I'm open to suggesting.
Okay, absolutely. Okay, something along the lines of licensee would ensure that the layout of the premises will be such that patrons will have unobstructed access to all escape routes and external exits.
That's perfect.
That's
yes.
okay.
Yes.
You're agreeable to that?
Yeah.
Thank you. Just bear with me. Moving on to so it's page 18, just at the top there. We've got liaison with public transport providers. What do you mean by that? What were you looking to kind of offer, I suppose, as the condition enforceable?
So the liaison with public transport providers pertains specifically to, and I would know that the word is too vague there, to taxi companies, and that is basically to make sure that any taxi operator, people doing pick up and drop off outside our premises, there were basically places that we would say they could and could not drop people off, or advise them insofar as you can tell a taxi company where and where not to drop off, mostly because we have a bus stop right outside. And if they were dropping off literally by the bus stop, there's the potential to cause unnecessary congestion because the bus wouldn't be able to drive there. And there's plenty of other spaces, both opposite across the road and adjacent, that they'd be able to drop off. So that really was just to prevent any disruption to bus service, that we would say to taxi operators, you can't drop people off there. But I would hope that taxi drivers know not to do that, but you never know with taxi drivers, so that's what that clause pertains to.
Okay, would you be looking to hold yourself to that condition and have that within your operating schedule?
I think I would say no, because whilst we would make every effort on good faith to make sure that the taxi companies were doing that as part of trying to prevent nuisance or public safety issues, we wouldn't be able to control the actions of external parties, and I think we'd be putting ourselves in a difficult position if I was saying that I can tell taxi drivers what to do. So I would say no, that's probably not a condition we would include.
So you'd be looking to remove it?
Sorry, yes, we would be looking to remove it, yes.
Okay, just on item 4, we've got installation of soundproofing, air conditioning and sound limitation devices, which doesn't give very much to go on in terms of being enforceable. I'd question what air conditioning has to do with public safety and whether you had any comments on that. The installation of soundproofing, I think you said that you are looking to have soundproofing installed. Would that be prior to the premises being opened?
Yes, it would,
Okay.
yes.
Is that what you'd be looking to include as a condition?
Yeah, so that basically, wherein we already know that it's really quiet outside, you can't hear the music being played, as part of just preventing it being too loud to any of the neighbours that share the wall with us or above as well. Basically, they're small foam pads with cones on them that are very unobtrusive, but they do limit the amount of reverberation. So we are looking to have those installed prior to opening, yes.
Okay, so would you be wanting to offer any wording, or happy for me to suggest any? Or okay, something like soundproofing will be installed by the licensee prior to the premises being open for business.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah.
In terms of sound limitation devices, do you have one already in place?
We have one ordered to arrive to be installed before our opening date, yes.
Okay, so you will be using that when you have music playing?
Yeah, so it gives us an indication of the decibel level, so that if the decibel level exceeds the set threshold, we can then pull it down to the level.
Do you know what that sound level is?
I can't remember no, because I don't have the thing in front of me. I know that it's something to do with being above 34 decibels above the 10 decibels above ambient noise, where that noise is above.
May I make a suggestion? Where we've had noise limiters before, condition has been set where operators will work with public protection to set that level. So if you're happy to do that, we can put that into the operating schedule.
I'm up for that, yeah. The numbers I'm trying to remember are to prevent statutory noise nuisance in dwellings nearby and next door, which is a part of the Environment Act, I'm led to believe.
Okay, if you work with public protection on that particular level, then I think we can't go wrong.
Yeah, I would suggest the same. If you're happy for me, again, to suggest some wording for that.
Absolutely, yeah,
Okay,
yeah. If there's an agency that can help us with that, then yeah, that would be,
Yeah. Fairly standard wording that tends to be used. A noise limiting device must be installed and must operate at all times that regulated entertainment takes place at the premises. The device must be of a type. This is purely up to you. This is just suggested wording, so please, if you don't agree with something, please do say. The device must be of a type in a location and set at a level approved in writing by the appropriate officer of the council.
yeah, we're happy with that.
You're happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay.
Apologies, that was me.
Just to clarify something, you've talked about alcohol being served with food. Was that an intention, or were you looking to make that a condition?
That would not be a condition of the licence specifically. If people were drinking in our premises without the consumption of food, that will happen. It's not a drink only with food premises. People can just drink.
Okay, thank you. I believe that's everything I've got, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for covering the items that I missed. I think we have covered everything now. And just for the benefit of members of the public, we cover the operating schedule in detail in order to determine a set of enforceable conditions. So thank you for bearing with us while we did that. Sarah has.
Sorry, there was just one thing that's quite relevant to the music, because you mentioned that you were looking to turn your music off at the time of last orders for the drinking at time, and you intimated that you might be willing to make that into a condition, but I don't think you actually said whether you were offering that as a condition or not.
I believe we discussed that the playing of recorded music, the termination of that time was the same as the cessation of alcohol.
Right.
And then what we established, I believe, was that the drinking up time is the time between the cessation of refreshment, alcohol, music, and close to the public.
Yeah.
So unless you needed to include a specific stipulation, I'm hoping that's covered by the opening hours. But then if you did want to include a specific stipulation, it would just make it clear that that's why we had put those timings in place.
I think because of the way the application works, I think a specific reference to the music being turned off at that time might be.
We'd be happy with that.
Sorry.
Was that correct, Sarah? Is it required for the music specifically, or does the times that have changed cover it?
I'm just thinking actually if it's so the only time that any condition would actually buy would be when it became regulated entertainment, which is after 11 o'clock. So if you're looking...
That is the case for all days here, isn't it? Because 11 o'clock would be the earliest time at which the music would need to be turned up.
Yeah, then in that case we're good.
Okay, without a condition?
We don't need a condition if it's going to be turned off at 11 anyway, so...
We're happy to put a condition in just to prevent any ambiguity, but if we don't need it, then by the way, we're happy.
That would be Sundays, so other days it would be later. So music would be turned off at 12:30 Friday and Saturday, and 11:30 Monday to Thursday. So it does come into the after 11 o'clock.
Sorry, I'm getting myself a little bit confused here. So we've got the opening hours of the public. So supply of alcohol, sorry, that was, sorry, yeah, 11:30. Yeah, okay. Because I'm not going to do.
I think essentially we've got the hours of trading, the alcohol hours and late night refreshment are all part of an amended application. Specifically the music and the music being turned off at the same time as the last orders or the last sale of alcohol. Does that need to be conditioned in order for it to be enforceable?
So if it's being turned off at the same time, that would mean that on the Monday it would be turned off at 11:30. So technically, I suppose there's half an hour there, isn't there?
Yes, and on Friday and Saturday it'd be 12:30.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think probably we do need a condition there, don't we?
Yes,
we're
that's
happy
been
to
offered.
yeah, we're happy to have that condition, just so there's no ambiguity. That the playing of recorded music stops precisely when the sale of alcohol stops, as is we've agreed to day by day. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Is that okay, Tara?
It is, yes. So I just said something along the lines of recorded music will cease at the same time as the sale of alcohol. Thank you. Yeah, sorry for the confusion there.
Okay, no worries. Okay, so I'll just say for the benefit of members of the public, the conditions that have been we've run through in some detail are conditions that have now been offered as part of this application, and that is the application that we will consider shortly. Okay, so just just for clarification, no decision has been made yet, and the members of the committee will make that determination now. So we'll ask members of the public to leave. I would say for a period of 15 to 20 minutes. The time now is 4 o'clock, so we'll return no earlier than 4:15, please. people confirm. Thank you. Okay, welcome back everyone to Norwich City Council Licensing Subcommittee. It's Monday 6th of December and we're considering the application for grant of a premises licence Oliver's 152A Untitled Road in Norwich. Okay, we've reached our determination. It was a unanimous decision to grant the licence as applied for and as with all conditions as offered, with no further conditions. Sarah will cover anything that I missed, but just for the benefit of the public and the objector in particular, if there are any issues with the premises, all members of the public have the ability to request a review, and therefore the operation of the premises, successful operation of the premises is really important. There is a process of what's the word? Sarah, 21 days for
Appeal process.
for a
Oh, sorry, I'm not clear.
an appeal process. That's right. I don't know why that word escaped me. Yes, an appeal process. So all members have an ability to appeal. I think that's it. So Sarah, is there anything I've missed?
No, Chair, I think you've covered everything. There will be a written notice of decision will go out to you with the full reasoning, but Chair's covered the saving points.
Okay, thank you. I wish you success with the business, and I hope that residents of Town Close